What's going on, everybody? That was fun, right? Wow, a little detour. All right, well, we're back. This is Yes, Time and a Word from 1970. If you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. I do donation requests, so if there's something you want me to watch, listen to, talk about, just like 90125, if you want it out, hit me direct, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo in the notes section. Leave a link, leave a description. Let me know what you want the video to be on, and I'll make the video. You can also email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. Thank you guys. Okay, so Time and a Word, their second album, July 1970, was put together several months after the release of the band's 1969 debut, during which they continued to tour heavily and record Time and a Word during gaps between shows. Yes continued to follow their early musical direction of performing original material and cover versions of songs by pop, jazz, and folk artists. Small orchestra of brass and string session musicians was used on most of the album's songs. Okay, all right. Guitarist Peter Banks did not support the idea of adding an orchestra to the album, resulting in increased tensions between him and the rest of the group. During their UK tour in April 1970 and before the album's release, Banks was fired by the band and replaced by Steve Howe. The UK album cover was considered inappropriate for the American market. Oh geez, what did that look like? So a photograph of the band was used. Due to the lineup change, this put Howe on the cover of an album on which he did not perform. Yes, people had mentioned that in the comments. That is a little bit weird, but you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm sure most people at the time didn't even know the difference, right? Time and a Word received mixed reviews from critics, but became the band's first release to enter a UK albums chart. Began number 45, however, it did not chart in the US. In 2003, the album was remastered. Okay. After the release of their debut in 1969, Yes resumed extensive touring across UK. Lineup of the group at this time included John Anderson, Peter Banks, Chris Squire, Bill Bruford, and organist Tony Kaye. Towards the end of '69, they booked time at Advision Studios in London during gaps between shows to record Time and a Word. In a November 1969 interview during a tour of Switzerland, Bruford talked about the album, saying, "Anderson was pouring out new numbers for us to play. Usually he writes a tune and we listen to the tape and take it from there." At Advision, Yes were joined by producer Tony Colton, a friend of Anderson's, who is also the singer of the rock band Heads, Hands, and Feet. Never heard of them. Phil Carson, the European managing director of Atlantic and a fan of the band, brought in audio engineer Eddie Offord to assist Colton in the album's production because of his skills and hard work. Offord would become a key figure in the band's history in the 1970s as their producer and live sound mixer. Very cool. The group continued to follow their early musical direction. Okay, right. They followed the same format as Yes, their first album, an album of 8 tracks with 2 covers. A discussion amongst Squire, Anderson, and Colton during the writing process led to the decision of incorporating orchestral arrangements into some of the new songs. Anderson wished to use an orchestra as their new ideas needed additional sounds. He observed that Banks and Kaye had not worked together to create a strong sound that their new arrangements required. To attempt to solve this, the group discussed using a mellotron and tested one out, but the idea fell through. Instead, a brass section of session players and a string section formed of students from the Royal College of Music were hired to perform arrangements written and conducted by Tony Cox. Okay. Time and a Word was met with Yes-style controversy. What does that mean? As described by band biographer and reporter Chris Welch, Banks became the most outspoken member over his issues surrounding the album, which began the strain on his relationship with the rest of the group. He did not support the idea of an orchestra and thought it merely followed what rock bands Deep Purple and The Nice had already done. He argued it merely played parts originally written for the guitar or organ, leaving his active participation to the album a minimum, or his guitar buried into the album's mix. Banks also disagreed with the decision to have Colton produce the album and claimed that Colton lacked the experience and personally disliked Banks and his playing. Colton's ability was also questioned by Squire, who recalled one incident during the mixing of No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed, by which time Banks' replacement Steve Howe joined and attended. Colton mixed the song using a crappy pair of cans that did not reproduce bass. Oh, Jesus. Rather than using the studio's monitoring equipment. Wow, he's ahead of his time, Colton. Way ahead, decades ahead of time. Colton asked for more bass, but Squire and Howe noticed that the bass levels on the monitors were already high. In 1995, Offord said that he too thought Colton had not been the right person to produce the band at that time. Album's 6 original tracks are credited to Anderson, with either Squire or David Foster, Anderson's former bandmate in the Warriors. That's not the same David Foster. That's not the same David Foster as like the hit songwriter David Foster. That's not the same guy. It can't be. No. I'm next to positive that's not the same David Foster. Banks said he made contributions to the writing of the album, but his name was not included in the credits. It did not bother him at first, but it caused him discontent years later when he missed out on royalties. That's messed up. That's messed up. That's messed up. That's messed up. Time and Word marked a development in Anderson's lyric content, who began to move from simple love themes to topics of greater scale, described by band biographer Dan Hedges as life, oneness, and the future. Yeah, I don't like that whole, he wasn't not included in the credits. That's not cool. And for whatever reason, that causing issues with with royalties, that's really not cool. I think that's not, I'm not a fan of that. I think that's not cool. Super not cool. I mean, shit, on the Earth, Wind & Fire record that I worked on, they misspelled, my name was put on in 2 different places, as songwriter and also producer, right? And in one of them, I think it was in the producer, they spelled my last name wrong, which, I mean, okay, yeah, I got this Italian last name, right? It's long, whatever, but it's like, it's obviously the same name, right? It's obviously the same person. They left one of the L's off. And I was like, the second I saw it, I emailed. And I was like, yo. And there, you know, the response was basically, oops. It's like, yo. Like, that's crazy. It was released on Sony, okay? Atlantic, Sony, same, you know, especially nowadays, same difference. It's like these big major companies, you know, in the industry. It's just crazy. Just crazy. The fact that he's missing out on royalties because of that, that's wrong, in my opinion. That's messed up. You know, okay, like, it didn't work out, you know, between you guys, but like, you know, that's just disrespect, in my opinion. That's just disrespect. You know, like, come on now. Come on. You did work, right? You were in the band. You did record the parts, you know, like, I don't know, that's messed up. Okay, so I need to go back and figure out, just reread what was up with Colton. Yes, we're joined by producer Tony Colton, a friend of Anderson's, who is also, was a friend of John Anderson's. That's a little messy. And both Peter Banks and Chris Squire had a problem. You know, we're kind of like, And Steve Howe, it looks like, right? Squire and Howe noticed that the bass levels on the monitors were already high. Now, I mean, I don't know what happened back then or whatever, but if you're mixing stuff, you know, generally it's a good idea to like listen in multiple places. That's like common knowledge, right? It's pretty common knowledge. You want to listen to multiple places because even for people that don't know anything about audio, who just listen to music, when you listen to music in the car, you listen to an album in the car, and then you listen to it on your stereo at home or on your phone or whatever, you notice the difference that it sounds different in each place, right? It's the same music. You hear all the same things like that, but you're not hearing, if you're listening on your phone, you're not going to hear low end. You know, you can turn it up as loud as you want. You're not going to hear low end, you know, not like that. You're certainly not going to feel it. And it'll be different in the car, and it'll be different on a stereo. And, you know, you see pictures of recording studios, and they've got multiple pairs of monitors, and all those sound different, right? So, you know, listening on headphones, that's fine also. You know, that's just like another pair of speakers to listen to it and get some kind of reference point. Like, okay, it sounds okay in here. Oh, it sounds okay over here. Okay, it sounds okay over here. Over here, it sounds a little bit this, that, and the other thing. And then you notice that, and then you go back to the other place and be like, you know what, that could come down a little bit or whatever. And it wouldn't affect the sound of this, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, sorry. We're not even at the music yet. Jesus Christ. So we're starting out with No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed. The album's first cover song and opening track was written by American artist Richie Havens. It opens with an orchestral theme taken from the soundtrack to the 1958 Western film The Big Country by Jerome Ross. Okay, that's what we're starting with. All right, here it is. Yes, no opportunity necessary, no experience needed. Bam. Okay. I was gonna say, it starts with organ. But now this is more like James Jamerson style to me. Yep, that's in reference to a comment on 90125. Right? That's James Jamerson. Those things, the stuff over here, it's the brass. They'll cut out and it sounds not sometimes it cuts out and it sounds like spliced almost, like not right. There's something that's like, I don't know, kind of jagged about it. So loud. Bass is pretty loud, I have to say.
The life you're leading, she won't
there it is. That's cool. I dig it. It's cool. It's definitely a different sound than the first album. Yeah, producer probably. Obviously, the strings and the horns being added is a big deal. I mean, you heard Peter, but he had a little solo, right? He had a little solo, and then the strings and the brass came back in. There was something I noticed at the beginning, and also that middle section where the strings and the brass were, where something on this side, on my right side of the ear, so I'm guessing it was the brass because the strings were over here and the brass were over here. It's like kind of like when you hear, if there's like a section of audio, if you're looking at like Pro Tools or something like that, if there's a section of audio and it stops and it's like you don't like fade it out or anything like that, it just like kind of, and maybe there's hiss or some kind of like noise, you know, so you get your signal, whatever it is, let's say it's the brass this time, and you have the brass, but then there's still audio, but there's no sound coming through, right? The brass aren't playing, but there's still an audio clip, and you hear a little bit of like just the background noise, the hit, like the microphone just in the room, right? And then the clip ends, but you know, like the song is continuing, and you hear the clip, you hear that microphone almost turn off abruptly. Right? So does that make sense? I'm trying to like explain it in a way for people that don't know what I'm trying to get at and what I'm talking about or have experience with this stuff. Does this make sense? It sounds like the microphone for the brass is on and then all of a sudden it goes away, but you notice it go away. It's not like, okay, the brass aren't playing anymore and they're just not there anymore. It's like the microphone is on, the brass play, the brass stop, the microphone turns off, and you're hearing the microphone turn off, and that's kind of weird. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's literally what it is, but that's what I heard a handful of times throughout those sections, and I'm kind of like, and it didn't happen every time, so I don't really know what it was or what's going on with it, but that's what it sounded like to me. It sounded like something like that, which is kind of interesting or weird or what, you know, whatever. I don't know. I'm not really sure. At the same time, I also feel like I need to hear this again because there was a lot going through my brain, especially right at the beginning, because the first thing I was thinking was, okay, I just read that it starts out with this like orchestral, right? This orchestral opens with an orchestral theme, right? So that's what I'm expecting, but then I'm hearing organ first, and I'm like, do I have the right song? Is this the right version? What's going on? And then eventually what I think they meant came in, right, with the strings and the brass. And so I had other things kind of going in my brain, you know, just stuff like that. There's always like lots of different things, and I assume that that's going to continue to happen, especially with music like this, where it's just going to get more complex, that there's just so much to kind of pick out that it takes more than one listen, you know, to really just dissect and absorb. Yeah, it's a lot, but it sounds cool. The bass is pretty loud. Bass is right there. It is right there. Something that I noticed because of that is the drums are a little bit specifically the drums themselves, as opposed to like the cymbals, you know, the drums, right? Those round things that they hit and it makes a tone, as opposed to like a cymbal, right? The metal things. The drums, you guys know what drums are. The drums sound kind of not great, not there. You're not really like getting it, especially like the toms, like the snare and the toms. You get the kick, it's there, but the bass is definitely just taking over. Bass is taking over. You get a fair amount of the keys and the organ. You get plenty of John Anderson, and you get Peter Banks when he's playing. This is the first song, so I don't have a feel of, you know, whether, because it sounds like Peter Banks was mad about having an orchestra, just all that stuff. I'm not mad at it, not yet, at least. You know, I'm not mad at it. I didn't think that it overtook him or any of that kind of thing that he was talking about, like it was like, you know, getting in his way or whatever. Yeah, leaving his active participation to the album a minimum, or his guitar buried into the album's mix. I'll try and keep an ear on that kind of stuff. I'll try, you know, we'll see what happens. But I'm not mad at it. I thought it was fine. Thought it was fine. Cool. All right, on to the next one. Up next is Then, John Anderson song. All right, catch you then. Later.